as an era of cultural poverty. America's most recent awakening was the consciousness revolution, which spanned from the campus and inner city revolts in the mid-1960s to the tax revolts of the early 1980s. The third turning is an unraveling. The mood of this era is in many ways the opposite of a high. Institutions are weak and distrusted, while individualism is strong and flourishing. Highs follow crises, which teach the lesson that society must coalesce and build. Unravelings follow awakenings, which teach the lesson that society must atomize and enjoy. America's most recent unraveling was the long boom in culture wars beginning in the early 1980s and probably ending in 2008. The era opened with triumphant morning in America individualism and drifted toward a pervasive distrust of institutions and leaders, an edgy popular culture, and the splitting of national consensus into competing values camps, red and blue. And finally, we enter the fourth turning, which is a crisis. This is an era in which America's institutional life is torn down and rebuilt from the ground up, always in response to a perceived threat to the nation's very survival. Civic authority revives, cultural expression finds a community.
That's what's happening now?
Yeah, so the early 20s was the war on terror, Al Qaeda and all that.
Early 2000s, man.
Now it's the...
But like he says, like, the third turning is pretty much where you start distrusting, you know, like we don't trust our government anymore.
Now you don't trust government, you don't trust journalism, you don't trust anything.
Yeah. This is crisis mode now.
Yeah,
this is fucking crisis mode right now as we speak. We're about to see for the next 10 years, let's say whatever, it could be whatever, next 5 years, you know, much more turmoil as we speak, you know, because wars and now there's terrorists and there's people are like, okay, let's get over this, you know, like eventually we're gonna get so fed up with this. Hey everybody, thanks for sticking around. If you're loving this content, hit the like button and subscribe and join to our awesome community. Ring that notification bell so you'll never miss a beat. Together we're building something so special. Let's grow this channel and let's have some fun along the way. For some more content, check out these other fantastic channels. You got Checkin Habs, one-stop shop for all those things. Habs, sports, you know, we got so much information on sports, guys. Come on. Hello. And Checkin Reports, stay informed of the latest political news and current events. Hello. So that's it, fam. Come and check us out.
And not, especially with like the AI and deepfake stuff.
Yeah.
You have no idea what's real and what's not.
Yeah,
man.
you can't determine anything anymore.
It's crazy, man. It's like you won't know. Like
the other day, you made a comment. Did he actually say that, or somebody create a video?
Because I wasn't sure. Like I was skeptical, but that's because how I think. It's like
that's paranoia. We're living in like such a paranoia right now, dude. We don't know what to trust, what's real, what's not real.
Our money is not real. Our politicians are not real. Like
that's crazy.
Nothing's real anymore, right? So this is like we're in this mode, and where we just have to figure things out, and it's going to take some time, you know.
Crisis mode.
Yeah. So I'd like to continue. I hope you don't mind. Like I
just want to cut it up. I don't want like us just sitting down watching a video.
100%.
Purpose, and people begin to locate themselves as members of a larger group. In every instance, fourth turnings have eventually become new founding moments in America's history, refreshing and redefining the national identity. Currently, this period began in 2008 with the global financial crisis and the deepening of the war on terror, and will extend to around 2030. So what does all this say about our future? Well, in our paradigm, America has entered the fourth turning. What can we say about fourth turnings? Each turning lasts around 22 years, so this turning is going to last until about the year 2030. So we're not quite halfway through yet. Now, this is the winter of history. It's a time of creative destruction of public institutions.
Just want to put out there is like around 2030 is kind of like the point of no return for climate change. That's what they're saying. Don't do anything.
There's a lot. There's a lot going on in 2030.
So what are you saying? If we do something, there's a chance of like reducing, controlling everything that's going bad?
From what I understand, if we continue going the way we're going now, and we're still at 2030, it's like there's no way of turning back. It's like past the breaking point of doing anything with the climate. But you know, they could be wrong. Could be a lot of just like
more paranoia.
Like trying to scare people to like, okay, guys, let's get our shit together. I don't know, but
more paranoia.
Economically too. Trust me, we're on the debt path that, look, United States, they can't, as we speak, they can't. This is the reason why Trump and everybody are back to back to spending. You know what I mean? This whole idea of like trying to lower the deficit and just can't. And that was one of the when I was excited that Doge was actually in and like try and like take $1 trillion off of the budget and like, okay, that might actually help the budget. It might actually help their economics. But they haven't done anything really, and they can't. Because first of all, the politics just won't allow it. The divide between the two parties. And if they really do, that's going to deflate. And then they can actually crush the economy at the same time. Anyway, but he continues and goes on. And this is 4 years ago, So he expresses that what happens next usually, electable and people need somebody to really rally to, and we were kind of seeing that as we speak. So
this guy's legit, like this.
Oh yeah,
like a conspiracy theorist.
No. Neil Howe's an economist. He's a smart guy. He's part of Hedgeye. It's a huge newsletter for professionals, and he's part of the team.
Okay, you awake? Still awake.
We're going to radically change ultimately when we get out the other end of this thing our politics, our economics, our sense of what we need in terms of public infrastructure in our lives, and very much of that is going to be shaped by the values and aspirations of the rising millennial generation. What do we know of the morphology of these turnings? Well, it starts with the catalyst, and of course the catalyst was like 1929. It was 2008, a sudden shock to our system. Okay, we're in a new place now. We're not in Kansas anymore. We have a whole new sense of where we need to go as a nation. We suddenly shocked out of our third turning individualism, celebrity circuses, and whatever we thought about back then. Things are going to be different now. Families are suddenly aware that they're not going to do as well as their parents. We're suddenly see that our role in the world maybe is not what we expected. That's the first thing, and that's already happened. The other three phases of the fourth turning haven't happened yet. One, which will soon happen, is what we call the regeneracy. This is when distrust reaches its low point and we suddenly begin to coalesce around something, some leader, some movement we began to feel positive about as a fulcrum, as some point at which we can begin to find increasing trust in someone who can piece together institutions.
Trump.
Additional shocks to our system, either in terms of economic, financial, or geopolitical shocks, are on the table.
You want to say something?
I was going to say populism, not just Trump. I think populism in general is a theory like that people are advocating more and more, and they're defending their country, their nation. This is and Trump was obviously he's a symptom of this. I say that you got you go ahead.
But isn't populism usually like the precursor for like communism and fascism and stuff like people take down the government and like more like that's usually like dictatorship, right?
Well, in this, I think it's not necessarily that worked 100 years ago. Let's say, okay, I don't know about this time. We've evolved, and we will find out this history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it rhymes. You know what I mean? So there's going to be a variation to the whole idea.
Rhymes? What do you mean?
It rhymes. It's not going to be the exact thing.
Be similar.
Some similarities, just the market when you're watching a trade. Let's say he has this type of flow. It doesn't exactly happen the way it happened last time, but it changes it up, and then it kind of gets the same results. So who knows what type of fashion? Maybe something new, that might happen.
It repeats itself, right?
Yeah, like I said, it repeats itself, but not necessarily repeats itself. It rhymes.
2030 by 2030 in 10 years. Wow, it's going to be. Oh, in 2035, I was thinking. 10 years.
Yeah.
No, 20. If we're heading into that by 2030, it's the 5 years after that going to look like?
This is what happens in a fourth turning, because at this moment of great vulnerability, we're going to hit further points at which we realize we are unprepared for the future. A lot of the assumptions we're making actually aren't going to pan out. We need to retool our institutions in a much more fundamental way than we've seen thus far. That's exactly what happened in the 1930s, where we kind of ratcheted down our expectations and retooled things in a bigger and bigger way than FDR ever thought going in 1932 that he would ever have to do. That's where we're going to go, and that's going to lead to what we call the crisis. That's the third point in a fourth turning, when suddenly things get worse and worse, but we're beginning to match it with greater and greater civic effort. We're rebuilding our civic life to match this greater and greater sense of crisis. Then we reach the crisis and pass it, and then that leaves the final act in a fourth turning, and that's what we call the resolution. That's when the treaties are signed, the negotiations are made, all of the civic cement, which was wet during the fourth turning, suddenly dries, and then we suddenly have a post-crisis order, which hopefully would endure a beneficial and working post-crisis order that we hopefully will endure for the next 2 or 3 turnings after that. The final point I want to make is this, is that people talk about fourth turnings, and I've been quoted in the media this way, that they're just bad, they're apocalyptic, they're horrible for all of us. And I just want to make the point that fourth turnings are actually necessary, just like winter is necessary. Winter kills everything off so that new things can grow. And just as forests need fires, rivers need floods, so does society need events which clean out the debris, clean out everything that's sclerotic and ossified that no longer functions, something which tilts the whole playing field of power and wealth from the old back to the young. This is what fourth turnings do. They renew us. Fourth turnings are the price we must pay for a new golden age. History has shown this time after time, and we're about to see it again in what I expect to be a really interesting and fascinating period in our history with which we can truly be all engaged.
Sick. Like, makes sense, like in a sense where you just, we're going to be depending on each other eventually, more and more, communities have a better relationship eventually, trust each other a little bit more.